Now the midfield. Looking at this midfield, I have a question for you about this. Is Andy Sullivan going to start? We saw her start the last match against Mexico. No? Who will start in the number 6?
Probably Lindsay Herrera. That's what they've been doing. They've been running Lindsay Herrera out there endlessly, and we've seen the tape around her knee slowly disappear. But I'm not too sure how she's feeling. On that knee, quite frankly. I just don't see it. I think, especially because that game against Mexico was far more of a grind than they anticipated it to be. And because of it being such a grind, I do not think that they start Andy Sullivan in this one. Although, again, this team has been dealing with some injuries, and there hasn't been 100% clarity on the state of those. And we've talked about that on this show before. We just don't believe that we're actually going to get a full diagnosis or a full, report on what these injuries mean until this tournament is over, quite frankly, because that's typically how it goes in high stakes competitive events like this. There is no actual revelations of the severities of certain injuries until things are at their conclusion.
So no Andy Sullivan in the start. What about Sam Coffey? Will we see?
Is this the game where we see Sam Coffey? Is that why you bring in a Sam Coffey in light of losing a center striker? I don't know. I'm baffled sometimes.
I don't think Coffey's going to start. I
know the mentality, I think, in bringing in a Coffey is that you're adding depth to this midfield that has clearly been navigating some struggles in terms of an injury or 2 or 3. And coming off of that game against Mexico, where, again, it was a bit more of a grind than they anticipated. Andy Sullivan is one of those players that we refer to when we're talking about dealing with some injury, as well as Lindsay Herrera. And we can only assume now a Rose Lavelle in that picture as well. So you're talking about 3 players who would maybe in a knockout round game be your typical starters in a tournament like this, as they've been called up. But I'm not too sure what that looks like against Costa Rica, or what the rotation it looks like. And honestly, quite frankly, if Sam Coffey gets minutes in this game, should we really be surprised at this point? Because of the rotation that we've seen from this coaching staff in this tournament, it would be a hell of a moment.
It would be amazing. I mean, that's why you bring a player like that in. I don't think we're going to see it, though. I don't think Sam Coffey's going to start.
Yeah.
That would be crazy. It would be crazy to bring in a player that didn't initially make the roster and then give them a start in the semifinal of the Concacaf W Championship. So for that reason only, Sam Coffey will not get the start. That would be
listen, I respect it. I'm keeping that 1% open. I'm keeping that window open 1% at least, because I can't be like, there's been a number of times. There have been a number of scenarios now where we've come on this podcast and we're like, hey, like, we didn't think this was never going to happen. And here and when it happened. I mean, and part of the energy and thinking about bringing in a Coffey was the fact that she was a player that had spent time with this team ahead of this tournament.
Yes.
So was already sort of played with, trained with, been surrounded by, immersed in a little bit in this program. But the other side of that is, if you're not giving, that sort of type of energy to a player like Rodman, what are we doing here?
Exactly.
You're talking about bringing along some of these players who are still new to the team, little by little by little. If Coffey is a player that is dressed for this game, maybe some minutes, but I don't imagine that it's going to be extended by any means. So
if no Andy Sullivan, which I agree with that, I think I don't know if we'll see Lindsay Herrera start. Christy Mewis will probably get the start in the 6th.
Mewis is the answer,
based on injury and what we've seen. Christy Mewis, when she has rotated in, it's been in that defensive midfielder role, that number 6 position. I think we're going to see Andy Sullivan there. Honestly, I don't know if we'll see Lindsay Herrera. I think it depends on injury at this point. I mean, ideally, I think the starting midfield, it probably is going to happen that Sam Coffey starts, Sandra. It probably is, because we're talking about it. But in an ideal world, she'd message me. happen. Yeah, it probably is.
It's like hitting you now. You're like, you know what?
That's why.
The fact that it seems so impossible and we're on a live means that it's probably going to happen.
And that's fine. That's why we're here to talk about it. I'm okay with eating my words. I just think it would be crazy to bring a player in and then start them in a semifinal game. I mean, yes, it all comes down to injuries, but the ideal starting three would be, I think, Lindsay Herrera, Rose Lavelle, and Ashley Sanchez for this match based on their performances throughout this tournament so far. Now, injury comes into that. Rose Lavelle, at this point, we do not know her status of her ankle after that roll. She could have rubber ankles and be fine. Just tape it up a little bit tighter next match, go out there and play. Honestly, I think we could see that. So Rose Lavelle, and I think Ashley Sanchez deserves a triple start. This will be the third game in a row for her. She started the last two for Vlatko Andonovski against Jamaica and against Mexico. And I think she did a tremendous job. Having her in there alongside Rose Lavelle plays to Ashley Sanchez's strengths more so than playing alongside a Lindsay Herrera in that role with an Andy Sullivan. So I think that we'll see Lindsay Herrera. I think we'll see Ashley Sanchez and Rose Lavelle, frankly, get the start in this one, depending on injury, right?
Yeah, if they're able to go, I think that's ideal. I think you want to have this type of, attacking minded kind of midfield going up against, a Costa Rican side that might be, preparing to sort of present you with this sort of mid to low block. Mm-hmm. So I think we're talking ideally, if everything, comes out and plays out well, injuries aside, that's the ideal, type of attack or type of midfield that we want to see aiding the attack in this game. But they're still into this semifinal. A lot of unknowns, I think, but
many unknowns. Who knows? Maybe Christy Mewis, right? If
she's been subbing in as the 6, why not give her the start?
I know. See what she can do from the get-go in this match. So I'm still going to go Herrera, Lavelle, and Sanchez in the midfield. Now, if Lavelle is out, if she's dealing with a bit of an ankle injury and you want her for the championship game, maybe she does get some rest. Who do you think he should start in that position instead?
Oh, man.
Taylor Korniak.
I mean, we saw him bring in Taylor Korniak as a center striker. That's what I'm saying. I don't, it's unpredictable. I will give it this. I will say this. If not for nothing else, we are officially now, as audiences of this tournament, we are watching this in the knockout rounds, and we are still talking about unpredictable lineups and unpredictability within substitutions in this match. We're already in the semifinal, and it's not been something that we've been able to iron out or say, this is what it's going to look like moving forward.
Yeah. I
would have thought that this would have been, I would have thought that this would have been something that was, ironed out, settled out going into this knockout round, but that hasn't been the case.
It hasn't been the case. And so maybe we'll see Andy Sullivan actually start in there, and then Lindsay Herrera and Ashley Sanchez if Lavelle is injured. I think that rotates things around. Christy Mewis also can play higher, so maybe it would be Lindsay Herrera in the 6, Ashley Sanchez, Christy Mewis playing a little bit higher, whether it's that 8-10 attacking midfielder role, and then she can always slot back for Lindsay Herrera. They could rotate, right? If Taylor Korniak does rotate into that center midfield role, it could be either for Herrera or Mewis, and then the other one, Mewis, can just drop back.
I don't think this is going to happen. I don't think this is going to happen. I don't believe it's going to happen. But who has actually sometimes played a little bit lower at times for her club is Mallory Pugh. But I don't believe that's going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
But at the same time,
if anything, I think we would see a defender play a bit higher. Maybe he would slot Girma into that.
Oh, no. Do you disrupt what she's been doing so far?
No, but what if you don't have any? Well, they have options. They have Christy Mewis to slot in that role. because they have more forwards, right? You could throw Trinity Rodman in that center number 9 striker. You can and drop Taylor Korniak into the midfield. You could throw Midge Purse in the back line if you needed to. Like there are options. There are options.
I think there are options. I think at this point, I think if it's for me,
and Sandra, maybe
you got to give Chrissy Mewis a start. I would want to see her in the 6, but I like Chrissy Mewis is a player that I like higher, quite frankly. And if Lavelle is unavailable for this match, or if the mindset is preserve what Lavelle has to offer for something like the final, why not play Mewis higher and then put Sullivan and Herrera back out there and see what they look like? I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Maybe we'll see Mewis get the start. I would be happy for that to see, even if she's in the 6, because clearly they're seeing something in the 6 with Mewis there, and she's stepped in and played that 6. Now it's different. It's a different role for her, and she's still adjusting to that. And I mean, the fact that we're talking about this and saying there are options is also a little scary, that it's not solidified.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know what? It's not, though. That's the other thing about this. That's the other thing about this for me. It's actually not that scary because they're just that good. There's been this is like real like first world USWNT problems. It's like, oh no,
champagne problems.
It's like there's so many. It's like there's so many options that we don't know what the team is going to look like, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're going to go out there and they're going to do what they have been doing this entire tournament.
Yep.
This entire tournament.
It doesn't. Coffey will get the start. Mewis will get the start.
And we're gonna come on here and there's a very, very likely possibility that we're gonna come right back on this show and talk about how they won and are now going to the final. And none of that's gonna matter.